As discussion, Yann LeCun, he's a guest at Peter Abbeel's Robot Brains podcast. It's a very good podcast. It's a new podcast, and I can highly recommend it. He had already Andrej Karpathy on it, and now Yann LeCun. So Yann LeCun is one of the pioneers of deep learning, the way we understand it today. So obviously his thoughts are very important. I think the most interesting thing about the podcast interview is Yann LeCun's views on why it seems to be easier, or we have a lot more success in using AI in text versus video. And this is directly applicable to Tesla, computer vision, and the problem of self-driving. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's April 7th, 2021. This is Krim Delko. For the day, the fund is down 4.1%. The market is flat. For the year, we are down 4.7%. The market's up 8%. We're underperforming by 12.7%. I think actually one of the reasons why we're underperforming, we had some really good news in the last 2 days, and nevertheless, the fund is not able to perform in any way, or we're underperforming the market. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is that let's talk about Tesla, and then let's talk about the biotech stocks. So Tesla, I think we had conversations about the delivery numbers. They're phenomenal. We had conversations about the upside that we see in Tesla, the secular trend in intelligent electric cars that Tesla has not just started, but is also absolutely taking advantage of. All these things are positives, but there's one thing that we haven't discussed, and I think it's possible that that is weighing on the stock, and that is the lack of success in self-drive technology. Self-drive technology is getting better. We believe that Tesla will be like Google. It will just gradually get better and better and better, and we will just keep using it and automatically think back, let's say 2 years from now, think, oh gosh, I mean, what were we thinking back then when we were still using the steering wheel like 80% of the time, and things like that. So we will just gradually get better and better and better. However, it seems to me there's a bit of a dichotomy in the market right now between that and the scenario where all of a sudden we have self-drive technology and Tesla starts making thousands and thousands of dollars per car on software. I think that will happen, but excuse me, it will happen for many reasons. It will happen to some extent because self-drive technology is getting better, and it will happen also because Tesla will be able to sell other software, energy products, software products, apps, things like that. We spoke about the potential merger with Apple and the upside there. I think this leads us directly to the conversation between Peter Abbeel and Yann LeCun. Before I go there, I just want to mention another thing. We had some very good news also, let's say, on the genomic front. Illumina pre-announced and said that their sales are really strong and everything is going really well. So that should bode well for PacBio. Nevertheless, PacBio, since that announcement, is down about 4%. And this is, of course, this makes no sense. We have fundamentally positive news, and the stock is down. Well, I think there's two reasons. One is, of course, we can always say that the valuations have anticipated that. The other is, I think there is pressure on ARK Invest. ARK Invest as a fund is being attacked by shorts. It's being attacked by market participants. Maybe also not just being attacked, but they've just driven it a little bit too far with their marketing strategy. And there's been too much leverage in the system, and the leverage is being unwound. And we don't know what the details are, but we believe that that is part of the reasons why we're underperforming. And we're very disappointed at the year-to-date performance, of course, being down almost 5% when the market's up 8% is not what we're signed up for. But we think that particularly on the genomics front, the upside is tremendous, and the market is underestimating the value that can be delivered through digitizing life sciences and medicine and pharmaceuticals. And of course, on the Tesla front, we believe that the secular trends, strong demand and superior product performance of the cars and the software will drive value in the near future. So now let's get to the interview. So Yann LeCun says in this interview with Peter Abbeel that he thinks that the reason why text has been sort of the advances in AI as far as text is concerned are much, much better than video. And the reason for that is that he believes that it is much easier to make probabilistic predictions as far as text is concerned, because text is just much simpler. For example, our language that we have, it's pretty simple relative to video. What does that mean? Like he says, for example, if I put blank is chasing the mouse in the kitchen, it's relatively easy to predict that blank is either cat or kitten or something like that. Blank is chasing the gazelle in the savannah, again, lion, cheetah, etc. But it's not that complicated. Now, contrast that to a video that needs to predict the next move. For example, we're looking at a stone that is on the edge of a cliff. Now, the video needs to predict that the stone will drop because the video has learned that gravity takes you down if you're on the edge of a cliff, but in which direction, how fast, how much will the impact be? Those are the kinds of things that video has to predict, and it's much, much more difficult to do, and therefore we have less advancements in video than in text. This is in general what Yann LeCun is referring to as the advancements of deep learning in terms of video versus text. Now, let's get back to the basics. And the video, the conversation between Peter Abbeel and Yann LeCun is about, okay, what is deep learning? What have you contributed to deep learning, and where is it going? Deep learning is a way to encompass reality into a set of parameters and then have algorithms adjust those parameters in such a way that predictions can be made about the future of that environment. So that's really what deep learning is. Gradient descent is the actual function that drives those parameters to the most optimal value and therefore gives the model predictive value. So that's really what kind of Yann LeCun has done in his career. And then in 2012, ImageNet has been the great success with Jeff Hinton and Yann LeCun. They have been sort of in the same space and working on the same types of problems. And they've succeeded in solving some problems on image recognition, and that was the beginning. Yann LeCun then talks about how he was approached by Facebook because Mark Zuckerberg saw the potential that these statistical prediction models can have on text and Facebook. And he hired him, and he hired other people that used to work with Yann LeCun to work for Facebook. Another interesting conversation is about how Elon Musk thinks that self-driving cars will be a reality very soon. And Yann LeCun seems to be not of that opinion. In fact, I think there was a bit of a derogatory comment that, oh, well, Elon Musk is kind of buying the Kool-Aid of the industry, that we are so advanced. He's also, again, in a kind of a little bit of a derogatory way, making comments about Musk's concerns about AI, and that we're just not that far ahead, according to Yann LeCun, so those concerns should not be taken too seriously. He talks about a dinner, apparently, that Mark Zuckerberg hosted at his home in Palo Alto, where also Musk was invited, and they spoke about things, why are you so concerned about AI, etc. And I think in Yann LeCun's opinion, Musk is not that knowledgeable about the actual advances in AI. Now, my opinion here is, look, I'm not a big fan of Yann LeCun. Why? Because he works for Facebook, and this is a side note here. He's trying to. Peter Abbeel asks, okay, what's my problem with Facebook? My problem with Facebook is I think social media, and Facebook is the biggest one, is a new drug. It is the purpose of social media is to make us addicted to the screen. There is no value, no happiness, no well-being, no nothing. I've just gotten off Twitter again because it is just exhausting to be on social media. It's not a two-way communication. It's a one-way communication that is organized by either opinion leaders or AI. Now, Peter Abbeel, in a very polite way, asks Yann LeCun, look, we have this fear of the paperclip economy where we're just starting to do weird things that really make no sense because the AIs are driving us into that direction. And what do you think is social media, which is being criticized for doing that? Is that a fair criticism, etc.? And then Yann LeCun kind of evades the question, and he says, no, we at Facebook, we are not like that. We are optimizing for happiness because that is what really drives our value. Now, okay, that's fine, but what is happiness? And in the end, you make money if people are on the screen engaging and clicking, and because that's how you make money. So I'm not really buying this happiness stuff, and therefore I think there's a sense of hypocrisy here in my view, but that's fine. Look, it's okay. He's a very, very respected scientist, and he's also a human being. He probably gets paid very well. He has a nice lifestyle. He can live wherever he wants, work for Facebook, solve interesting problems, do science, hire interesting people, work with lots of technology, put a lot of compute power against his ideas, which probably he wouldn't be able to do if he was not working for an industrial company like Facebook. Therefore, I take it. It's fine. Go work for Facebook, no problem. However, I feel like there is one problem that I have that I think every AI researcher I think should consider, and that is, am I doing work with physics or am I not doing work with physics? There's a fundamental difference, and actually that's what Yann LeCun even alluded to when he spoke about the difficulties of predicting video versus text. Once you work with physics, and in a three-dimensional world, you have different problems. It's a much, much more difficult task. And there's the reaction of the object, let's say if you work with robots, with the environment is a different type of intelligence than predicting text or answering questions. It's just different. And actually, he even said that. He said text is relatively simple, even though we humans think we're so advanced in the grand scheme of evolution because we have language. Language is a very simple thing. It's a very narrow type of intelligence, versus moving around in the environment is unbelievably complicated and it requires a very different type of intelligence. So that's, I think, where the rubber meets the road here as far as making comments about AI, because I think Elon Musk is in the business of generating physical objects that are intelligent, and Yann LeCun is not, and nor is anybody at Facebook, as far as I know, and nor is most people at Google are not. At Waymo they are, but not at Google. So there's these two types of AI. There's the people who work for DeepMind and create Go-playing winners. That's fine, good for them, chapeau. But there's Andrej Karpathy trying to build a car, sell it to customers, and having the car tested by customers continuously and making the car drive itself. That is a very different problem. I know it's not solved, and this gets me to the point now. I'm now leaving the conversation of the podcast discussion, and I'm going back to my thesis. Why is Tesla stock not doing so well? I think people have been a little bit excited about the beta version of the self-drive, and that excitement is abating. And I don't know if it's abating because the test results are not as good as we thought, or it's just because people are now waiting for a subscription model and for people to buy it. I think that there is a problem with the pricing of the self-drive technology at Tesla that needs to be addressed. $10,000 for the package is too much, in my opinion. I don't have it as a customer. So amongst all the things that Tesla does, this is the one thing where I think the value proposition doesn't really work yet. And that is a problem because part of the stock valuation definitely relies on more software sales. So this has to be solved. It can be solved either through finding better ways to price it, maybe to bundle it with other things like insurance or other types of software, or by delivering more value by actually delivering more functionality. Again, I'm not a customer of full self-drive. I think just having the inner city stop sign recognition and halt and all these, that would be already a massive advancement. But I'm not sure if I want to pay $200 a month for that. That's the problem. So I kind of have to, I really have to think about this. And I think as investors, we have to be aware of that risk. And maybe that is what's holding the stock back. And on the other hand, that's also what's going to propel the stock to new heights. So as a conclusion, the conversation between Peter Abbeel and Yann LeCun, of course, it's very interesting in the sense that Yann LeCun is at the cutting edge of science. So he gives some interesting ideas about what deep learning and AI is today and where it's going. I think I'm a little bit disappointed about his derogatory comments relative to Elon Musk and Tesla and the ability to build self-driving robots. I think as a researcher and industrial proponent, I mean, as a person that works in business and research, a little bit more optimism, a little bit more maybe vision, even maybe a reality distortion field wouldn't hurt, because that's in the end how innovation happens. If we just do what's really possible and there's no risk and there's no conjecture and there's no also risk of failure and risk of maybe reputational failure, well, we're not going to advance. So we need to take that risk. Yann LeCun is not taking that risk. And again, being the regulatory relative to Elon Musk, working for a company like Facebook, I think that is a little bit of a far stretch. Nevertheless, again, very interesting interview. And the conclusion is that video is hard. Video is hard because it has to make much more difficult predictions than text. And therefore, we cannot take what Google is doing and say, well, Google is so good with text. Now, why aren't we getting self-driving cars? It's a different problem. It's a much more difficult problem. However, we believe that Tesla has the right infrastructure in place and the right people to solve the problem. Thank you.